This is IA Forward, your playbook for success as an independent insurance agent. Here to help you knock it out of the ballpark are your hosts, Shane Tatum and Tonya Lead.
Welcome to IA Forward. Shane, I had the opportunity last weekend to go see the Judds, or it was supposed to be the Judds. Of course, Naomi passed away, and so it was Winona and Martina McBride and Ashley McBride, and it was a fabulous show. And it was really a celebration of Naomi's Judd's life, and it was absolutely incredible. And as Winona was talking about her mom and through her grief process, she talked about an adjustment that she had made in her thinking, that someone had suggested that she stopped asking why and start asking what. And I thought that was just a really great thing, because so many times something goes wrong in our business or something goes right in our business and we think why, where it makes a whole lot more sense to start with why, but then move to the what. What now? What caused this? What brought us to this?
What now? Or what happened? Or how did we get here? Or how do we go forward? That's really, really important. Obviously, if you're dealing with something like grief or a loss of a loved one, then that's on a whole nother level. When we think about business ownership and we think about agency ownership, it's really, really easy to get caught up in the why and stay there. And if you stay there, then you really have a lot of trouble taking things to the next level, or execution. It's really difficult. It's really difficult to actually implement the ideas if you don't move over to what. Because I think why gets us to our idea stage. It gets us to our passion. It gets us to so many things, but we can't stay there. And so I think it's a great example, or a great challenge to all of us, to be able to move over and start progressing to the what.
You and I are both fans of Simon Sinek. If you've listened to our podcast before, you know that about us. And we love the idea of starting with why. That has been proven over and over and over again when you're looking at designing your business for the infinite game. So we're not saying to get rid of the why, but what we're saying is if you're kind of looking at those finite games within the infinite game, then that's where that what comes in.
Salespeople need some finite stuff. We may not have ever been that clear on things, but I can sit here all day long to leading our organization and talk about infinite game and talk about the why and all of those things, and they're warm and fuzzy and they're exciting and they're about as rah-rah as I'm going to get. And if I stay there and we never start taking steps or start implementing the what, the how, the doing, or what do we need to do at this point, if we just stay on that why, we're probably going to die on that hill unsuccessfully, to be truthful, because that's a little bit around what I feel like happens in society is we have a lot of idea people and we struggle to find the implementation people. At least that's what I see. Ideas, you and I, we know this. We can come up with enough ideas to supply the world.
Absolutely.
Now, finding people and having people with the bandwidth or capacity to actually implement those ideas before we create the next idea, that is where the challenge comes in.
I think about this why being a real challenge when something goes wrong in our business or something goes wrong in our life. And we're sitting there and we're having these thoughts, okay, why did this happen to us? Why did this not work? Why did this huge investment that I made in advertising, why did it not bring me the results that I thought it was going to? And sometimes it's hard to take that step back and look at those specific whats and move forward from there.
It starts with being honest with ourselves. And that's really hard because most people have way too much pride, or they have so much pride that they really have a hard time owning the mistake or owning the decision and learning from it. But that's really the most important part here, is that you learn from what happened. I'm telling you, the number of mistakes and missteps that I took between 1998 and 2010, I can't even remember all of them. And I was told by one of my mentors, you need to be writing a book, you need to be making notes, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. And of course, I'm too busy to do that at that time in my mind. And there's a whole book of things that you shouldn't do. Don't ask me how I know this, right? And I mean, there's a whole book of mistakes when trying to build and start an independent agency that I can tell you not to do. We are only at the stage that we are at because we learned from those mistakes and we were honest enough with ourselves to know where our strengths were and where our weaknesses were and how to not repeat those mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. Sometimes what happened here, why did this happen to me? Sometimes it just didn't go your way. Sometimes you did everything you were supposed to do and the market cycle shafted you or economic situations got you. Sometimes you go to the plate in a ball game 4 times and you hit 4 rockets right at somebody and you're 0 for 4. Did you have success? Technically, no. But did you have failure? In the statistical book, yes. But did you have a good swing? Did you hit the right pitch? Did you have the right approach? Sometimes stuff just happens. And I think we always want to know, why did that happen? And sometimes the answer is, it just happened. That's the way the ball bounces.
Your daughter had this happen at a ball game recently.
Yes, she did. It was fair, but the umpire thought it was foul. And it is a double or triple taken away. And the reality of it is that it can be used, if you're not careful, as a melting down point or a swing point if we allow that to happen. I see that a lot, and I see it in the context of agency ownership or starting out. If I would have just done this, or if this would have just swung my way, you know what? It didn't. Now what are you going to do about it? How are you going to respond to that? That's been one of the things that I was taught through the failure of sports, particularly baseball, because it is a sport of failure. It is such a good training ground for business ownership, I believe. Because failing 7 out of 10 times makes you successful. When we look at it through that lens, no, we don't want to fail 7 out of 10 times in our business. But if you have that sort of perspective of, did I learn through that failure? Then I think your batting average in business just continues to go up because hey, don't repeat that. Don't do that. Don't make that mistake twice. Or if you made it twice, don't make it a third time. I'm guilty of that.
So if we're looking ahead, what are the what's that our agency owners should be looking at?
This week, I'm on an org chart kick, and I like org charts. I like trying to figure out where I want my business to be. And I'm thinking as an agency owner, what do I want this business to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 8 years from now? And try to map that out based on your needs. That's a what. How are you going to actually get from point A to point B? Because if you don't have a little bit of the framework of the details figured out, then you're just throwing projections against the wall. And I like knowing when you visualize that out, when you lay that out on paper and develop that org chart, it tells you where your biggest opportunity to replace yourself is going to be. And it tells you how to remain passionate because you're able to get out of the things that you're not passionate about and able to focus on the things that you are passionate about sooner rather than later. And I don't think a lot of agents know that because they don't map it out. They don't start with pen and paper and draw it out. It's really important. That's one of our what's is, what do I do? How do I do this? And I wonder sometimes when I say org chart, if people freeze up. Do people know what I'm talking about? Is that something that the average independent agency owner or startup owner actually has any experience with? That's something that been in my mind because I've been talking about it a lot or thinking about it a lot. And do people actually know what that means? How to even start? How do I know what I need 5 years from now when I'm just now starting? That's where how you're surrounding yourself. Are you part of a group? Do you have a mentor? I think that's where that comes in.
So let's talk about it. And you don't need, if you're creating an org chart, you don't need to go out and pay for software and do the fancy dancy stuff. The first time I ever created one, I did it with a pencil and a piece of paper. And then Microsoft Word has a great tool to do it with. So don't go out there and invest in org chart software. You don't need it. But Shane, if we're setting up an org chart for an independent agency, what should our blocks be?
I use Excel, by the way, which is no different than Word in terms of the the tool.
That's
that-
because
that
y'all
is
are an
used.
Excel household. I mean,
We are.
Y'all write
We are.
letters in Excel.
Well, I don't, but my beautiful wife literally writes letters in Excel. It blows my mind.
So does my husband, so I
that's-
get it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've also done it in PowerPoint, by the way. If you have Office 365, then you have the tools you need, the technical tools. I also start on paper, and I generally move over to the org chart on the computer after I've done it on paper. I think that's really important. There's two ways that I've done this, and I tend to do it on paper in an inverted way. I start with my customer and I go backwards. The reason you start with your customer is, who are you? What are you going to do? Are you personal lines? Are you commercial lines? Are you going to have both personal and commercial? What is your end game? And I like to work backwards, but for the sake of this conversation, let's work top down. Obviously, you're the owner, you're at the top. We're going to do this in a traditional sense. We're going to have a personal lines and a commercial lines operation. We're going to do both types of business and stay very simple there. So next, I would go, without having the visual in front of us, personal lines manager, and then I would go a commercial lines manager. And then from there, you're going to have account managers and you're going to have salespeople. So you're going to have the account managers underneath this manager. You're going to have salespeople underneath that manager. And so now your blocks are starting to split. And you just keep going based on what you perceive the function is. Don't think about people, because day one, you don't have any. And if you do have any, you don't have many. What that means is, if it's just you, when you finish this org chart, you're going to be the president and CEO. You're going to be the personal lines manager. You're going to be the personal lines sales manager. You're going to be the personal lines service manager. Then you're going to be the account manager. You're also going to be the producer, and you just keep going. On the commercial side, you map that out and you do the same thing there. You mirror that. You're going to want to have some level of a leadership team at some point, or a management team. So maybe you have an accounting person or an finance manager or bookkeeper. Don't think about this like, well, I'm going to do that, so I'm not going to create a block for it, or I'm not going to create a function for it. Don't think that way. Go ahead and create the function, because you don't know what you're really going to gravitate to when it's all said and done anyway. When you want to get to the end game, that's what you're trying to project out. So go ahead and put that payroll, bookkeeper, HR person, because you're going to have staff one day, and put yourself in those blocks. That's fine. You can stay in those blocks forever, for all I care. It's just know that that function is a part of your organization. A marketing person. I wasn't going to leave you out, Tonya. Said it's all right.
Thanks.
We had a block for you way before you showed up. And so this exercise is so thought-provoking to me for everyone to do, because it really makes you be honest with yourself. When you draw all that out and you end up with, I'm going to make this up, 10 or 12 blocks, first thought is you're going to get a little overwhelmed. That's okay. But the second thing is, what do I love about this? Am I the rainmaker? Am I the salesperson? Am I the networker? Because if you're the rainmaker, well, then guess what? The first block, you're not going to be focused on replacing yourself in that sales or sales management block. You're going to be focused on replacing yourself in that service category. And you're going to be needing to focus on that area. And you may not have known that until you actually mapped all this out. You might have had it in your head, but that's not something that you can kind of just really be honest with yourself about.
How do you feel about filling those blocks with outside organizations?
I'm fine with outsourcing for certain things. Personally, I don't like necessarily outsourcing for things that touch my customer necessarily too much. Early on, maybe some marketing, but the payroll function, some of that accounting function, depending on your knowledge of QuickBooks or your knowledge of accounting pieces, that's an area that I would really highly recommend you consider first as far as outsourcing or having some outside help. I know the VA, the virtual assistant industry, is hot and growing for the independent agency system. I'm not opposed to that. I love the models that are really more about helping the agent. So literally the term virtual assistant being an assistant to the owner or the agent or the CSR that has a lot. So being able to take things and processes and things that have to happen and have a good relationship with an organization like that does it well is good, because we want to stay client focused as much as we can. And we want to stay engaged with who we are: risk managers, salespeople, risk management, protecting of assets, and taking care of our customers. That's what I don't want to let go of. What I want to let go of, if I need some bridges and gap fillers, so to speak, I want to let go of the things that don't necessarily impact my day-to-day customer relationship.
Years ago, I had a mentor tell me to do this at home too. Sit down, block out all of the things from laundry to cooking, and figure out from a time value of money perspective if being able to pay for certain things made my life more productive and easier. It worked the same way. And I did that and realized that there were certain things in my life that if I outsourced, I had so much more time to enjoy the things that I really wanted to enjoy, and it really cut down on my stress level.
I love that. I didn't do that in a formal way, but over time that has happened. And I love the idea of having a formalized process like we're talking about with our businesses, especially for business owners, because your brain is on so much. When you get home, back to the work-life balance concept here, I want you to be able to turn some stuff off a little bit. I know that's hard, but I want you to be able to be present. And if you are stressing over mowing the yard, or you are stressing over something else that is just a thing that you have to do because you think you have to do it, but someone else can do it just as well or better for a reasonable price, then it may give you back some of that time, which allows you to be fresher when you get back to the work environment, which means you're going to be more productive and successful. That's something that we should really take to heart. And I have a really quick story on that. So for years and years, I, like everyone else in most of Texas, in the country, mowed my own yard, took care of my own yard. I was a lousy yard guy, first and foremost. And it was always overgrown, and it was always a problem. And when we got into club sports and we were gone all the time, finally relented and got some help. And I went through a couple of different local folks, and I finally landed with this one individual. The aha moment for me, number one, he's incredible and he's done a great job, and I've continued even into empty nest. I don't own a mower. I sold it. I don't own a weed eater. I sold it. I sold all of my yard stuff. I pay Paulo now, and he is incredible, and he's become a friend, and we talk about business, and it's really cool. And I remember coming home after a tree fell, and I needed to get the tree cleaned up. And I was like, okay, I'll do that this weekend. And I came home on a Wednesday or Thursday, and my tree was gone. I called Paulo, hey man, did you do that? Where'd the tree go? He goes, I took care of it. I was like, what do I owe you for that? That's not part of the deal. He goes, you're fine. I'm good. He said, man, you work all day really hard. You don't need to come home and worry about that. And I was like, mind blown. Oh my gosh. Guess what Paulo got? He got a customer for life. Unless he sells his business or unless he fires me, he's stuck with me. It was him that really turned my mind to this idea of that outsource. It's not pompous, or it's not a hoity-toity thing to have some things in your life. People take care of some things because they have a business that they're doing this for you. That's their business, and you're helping them. And so it's a whole domino effect process here that I learned the hard way after probably struggling through it for my first 15 to 18 years.
Shane, I'm currently a producer, and I'm thinking about starting an agency. What are the whats that I should be paying attention to?
One, are you capitalized? Are you ready? This is a big one for me because I've seen people make this mistake. Are your results from your effort, or are you the benefactor of the agency's effort? That is a big what, because I need you to be honest with yourself about that. I need you to recognize if you are a producer at an agency and you have this goal and dream and desire to own your own agency, then I'm a supporter of that. But I also want you to recognize if and what that agency has done for you. Are they great in the community? Is their brand helping you be who you are? If so, how are you going to bridge becoming the startup and making this migration over from producer at agency A over to your new agency as owner? Are you experienced, and do you have the capability to generate your opportunities, your leads, your new business so that you can build your book of business? Because if the agency you work for will let you buy the book and take it with you, okay, problem solved. But most won't. That's normally the agency's business. Normally you can't take that book with you. So what are you going to do about that? I also want, one of our core values is honesty wins. I also want you to honor those non-competes or piracy agreements, and I don't want you to do something to the owner or the agency that helped you get to where you are today. I want to support the dream, but I also want to do it the right way. Number one, what is your environment and how are you going to have that separation happen for you to get into a good experience and a good place as an agency owner? The other thing is, who are you? And I think that's the other what, because I do see this a lot. If you are a really good technician and operator and workflow maestro, then you may or may not be the best salesperson. So you may need to think about how and when are you going to be able to hire some salespeople. If it's the flip of that and you are the rainmaker, how are you going to handle in those early days that servicing of the business? So I want you to think about that, which is why I think the org chart's really important. And then lastly, I don't want you to overthink. And so, I don't want you to get paralyzed with the analysis. I don't want you to freak out because you have a lot of different things to do, because you can partner with someone, aggregator. There are lots of tools available to you so that you can just hit the go button. I want you to think about those things, but I don't want those things to keep you from hitting go. And I think about that, just me coaching through the years, and even as a player, you work on your swing, you work on the fundamentals, you work on work. And when you get up to the plate, you just got to see ball, hit ball. You can't think about all that stuff. You can't load here, do this, do that, because you're done. You're beaten. You work on all that, you analyze, you prepare in practice. An agency equivalent is you prepare, but then when it's time to hit go, you go. When it's time to get to the plate and hit, see ball, hit ball. Because a lot of that stuff, you can prepare and prepare and prepare, and until you go, you're really not going to know what your next step is. So some of that you just have to plow through, fight, get up, fight again, get up, and it's just the way it is. And I think it's that way for any business. I don't think that has anything to do with just the insurance business.
I'm going to leave us today with this quote from Tom Landry. Today, you have 100% of your life left.
Attitude's a choice. Make a great one.
Bye, y'all.
Ready to get the ball rolling with your independent agency? Learn more at IntegraAgent.com. That's IntegraAgent.com. Thank you for joining us on IA Forward. Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now, or learn more at IAForward.com.